Hi guys, welcome back to 17 Square Meters Garden. It's the end of September, so I'm gonna give you guys a tour of my balcony garden because it's been a while. I think last tour was in July, so it's been 2 months and quite a few things have changed. I added a few things, I removed a few things, I moved some plants around, so it looks a little bit different than before. Just one thing that I wanted to mention is that this summer was exceptionally warm. The temperatures were above 40 degrees Celsius for really long periods of time, so a lot of the plants didn't make it. Like, I will show you exactly which plants didn't make it. You know, even though my balcony garden is in the shade and I try to take a good care of my plants, it was too much for these plants. Some plants are more fragile, some plants are more susceptible to heat, and also September started off with temperatures as high as 36 degrees Celsius, and it's still 30 degrees Celsius as we speak at the end of September, so it's exceptionally warm and a lot of the plants are confused. For example, my hostas are blooming again and they should be entering dormancy, but instead of entering dormancy they are doing the opposite, they are blooming. A lot of the plants are putting on new growth, there is a loss of new fresh foliage, so I'm a little bit worried because, you know, if we get some cold snaps or frost in October, all of that new foliage, all of those plants, they might get damaged because they are not ready for cold temperatures. So I'll have to keep my eyes open, I'll have to be very careful. And also, a lot of you asked me if I could make a video on winter care, how to protect plants in winter and stuff like that. I'm definitely gonna make a video like that sometime in October, I promise. It's just that right now it's still way too warm for me to be pulling out all of my, winter gear and to protect my plants and stuff like that. So I will definitely make a video about winter care in October. So for now, let's go. Let me show you how the things are looking at the end of September. So starting in this corner, as you can see, I added a new bench to my balcony garden. I've been wanting to add a bench for a really long time, but I just wasn't sure if it's a good idea because my balcony garden is very narrow. It's only 1.3 meters wide, so even the smallest bench looks really large in here. But I'm really happy that I purchased it because it's such a great addition, and I'm already thinking. I have a lot of plans on what I'm gonna plant all around it, how I'm gonna decorate it. For now, I planted a few galvanized buckets with some fall plants, chrysanthemums and heathers on the other side as well. And on the other side, we have one of my recent compositions in a wicker basket, some more chrysanthemums, some lanterns, pine cones, just a few seasonal accents. At the back of the balcony here, there are just a lot of plants that are in the waiting. For example, a lot of my propagations, and you can see my biennial plants, seedlings that are growing super healthy, and it's soon time to plant them out to their final pots. We have some pansies, we have forget-me-nots and foxgloves. So all of this will be gone in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna be planting them in the railing pots here. And speaking of the railing pots, as you can see, my dahlia here, it's one of the dahlias that I got for free at the garden center. I planted it, I wasn't sure if it's gonna grow, but it grows, it blooms, so I think I will give a try to a few dahlias next year. I tried to grow them in the past, they never grew for me, but I placed it strategically, as you can see, so that it catches as much morning sun as possible, and so far so good. This poor woven willow, I love this plant, but it's struggling. As I mentioned already before, it was supposed to be a cornus. It's a willow tree that requires a lot of water, a lot of sunlight, and it's struggling on my balcony. Definitely need to plant it in a larger container next season. Now let's take a quick look on the railing pots here. The Euphorbia Diamond Frost took over the entire container and it's growing super well. This plant really doesn't require much. The same for Begonia semperflorens, they are blooming all summer long. I'm definitely adding more begonia to my balcony garden next year. That's funny how, I grew begonia every single year since I have my balcony garden. But this year I was like, well, I'm tired of begonias, and I only planted them here on the railing, and I regret it because they just bloom non-stop all summer long, no matter the weather conditions. So I'm definitely adding more begonias to my garden. But as you can see, the lobelia is struggling. Some of them are still looking okay. Now that it's a little bit cooler, they started to produce flowers again, but for the most part they all just dried up and died. The same for Sanvitalia procumbens, such a beautiful plant, but it just didn't make it in the heat of summer. So yeah, I think next year I'm not gonna be planting mixed compositions. I'm just gonna be planting some begonias or some trailing geraniums or something like that. Something simple, but something that can withstand all kinds of weather. On the floor here, another begonia that I bought at the grocery store, just to add a pop of color when everything else was dead. On the floor, some other plants. My scabiosa is blooming again. Again, it should be entering dormancy, but it's just starting to bloom again. But I don't mind, because the flowers are really beautiful and they're very much needed at this time of year. Moving this direction, on the table here, my two Coleus topiaries. I got so many questions about this particular plant after showing this in my recent video. I mean, I spoke about bulbs, but everyone was just asking about the Coleus, and if I could show and share how I'm training these plants into little trees. But you guys, it takes so much time. It took me 2 years to arrive to this stage. So if I were to show how to do it step by step, I would need to record the video over a period of 2 years. But I have some clips. I found some clips, so I will see what I can do. So if I can, I'm gonna post a video on how to train them into topiaries. Moving this direction, I moved a few things around. I moved my hydrangea. I think it has more place here because it starts to be really large, this one. And then, as you can see, I removed my geraniums. And I think I'm gonna explain the reason in another video, because I don't want this video to take too long. I am still gonna grow geraniums, just not as a perennial plant. So in these pots, I'm gonna be planting some spring composition, some spring bulbs lasagna, which I'm gonna share with you later. On the floor here, I have a chrysanthemum that I've been growing for years now on my balcony. I grow it as a perennial plant, and I really like it because when you grow chrysanthemums as perennial plants, they bloom over a really long period of time. Usually this one starts at the end of September and it blooms all the way until the end of November, so over 2 months. It is tricky to keep them from year to year because they are not very frost hardy, but once you succeed, after, I think they become a little bit more resistant with the passing years. Every year, you know, if they survive the first winter, after, I think they're a little bit more resistant, and it's easier to grow them after. This is one of my favorite plants. It's Crocosmia Fireburst. It has very beautiful variegated leaves with a bit of pink tinge on the leaf margins, and it turns very bright red color in winter. Above me is my clematis wall. It is growing like crazy. Look how far it has reached already, almost until the end of the window. So it is a spring flowering clematis. It looks absolutely stunning in the spring. It's covered in pink flowers. So the idea is that because it is a very large vine, as you can see, it can grow up to 8 meters. So the idea was that it goes above the window and it trails a little bit down. And same here, that it goes above this window all the way there and trails, so that it kind of creates sort of a curtain of pink flowers. And I think it will look already super beautiful next spring. The shade garden is looking quite lush. As I said, my hostas are blooming again. But on the floor we have variegated Brunnera. We have the 3 perennial plants that I added recently. We have Podophyllum spotidoti, Hacanocloa macra, and fern, silver fern. So it's looking quite good. And as you could see, I moved my Japanese maple in here because the poor thing was not handling the heat of summer either. Perhaps, as you can remember, it died when I went on holidays. I mean, it defoliated and it looked dead. But then it bounced back, so I was extremely happy because it's one of my favorite plants and it grows new foliage, new leaves now. But I moved it here in this full shade corner because the Japanese maples with green leaves or yellow leaves or variegated leaves, they are very sensitive in the way that they can sun scorch pretty quickly. So I moved it to the shade garden and it seems to be doing really well in here, so it's gonna stay there. And the plant that was here previously is now there. Okay, you guys, so I hope that you enjoyed this quick little tour of my balcony garden, seeing some updates, seeing how the things are looking at the end of September. There are so many projects on my waiting list. There are many plants that I want to add to my balcony garden this fall, so there will be a lot of projects, so stay tuned for that. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next Saturday. Bye!